board members here. We have an expectation that member Budnick will be in the next 15 minutes.
30, we hope.
Okay. He's
just landing.
He's landing. Luckily, we're not too far from the airport. I'd like to begin by doing some introductions of new board members today. Since our last meeting, we had the appointment of retired Judge Gordon Branco from Alameda County, appointed to the board. Judge comes to us with a long experience as a judge both in the municipal court and superior court. He has participated in a number of efforts with the California Judicial Council, and he has been recommended by them to join the board. In just a few minutes, Judge, we're going to do your formal swearing in, and I'll ask you to say a few words.
Oh, all right.
You don't mind?
I'll say everything.
Yeah, very straight. I'm the only one who can go on and on and on. Next to Judge, we have the new and exciting acting secretary of CDCR, Secretary Diaz. Nice to have you today. He has a long, enduring history with CDCR. He was 21 when he began, so he's been there 9 years. 30. We are very pleased to have you with the board, and you also will be asked to make a few brief statements after your formal swearing in. And to all of you in San Diego, we welcome Sheriff Gore, the San Diego County Sheriff, who is the 29th Sheriff of San Diego, and he comes to us with a long history with the FBI, and he was sworn in as Sheriff of San Diego in July of 2009, and it is an honor to have him on the board. He is living evidence that you cannot say no to Governor Brown. Really, really excited to have you here. I'll ask all three of you to step up here, and we're going to do the swearing in. And as you make the move towards your swearing in moment, I'd like to, already sworn in, but new to an open public meeting today, we have Chief Varela from Ventura County. He was sworn in at our last meeting, and he's already been given job assignments. So he also will be making a brief statement to the body. Not bring you back to that group. I will say hi, and then I ask you to say your names in unison. And I'll do my best to do this in a fashion that you actually can track and follow. I, thank you, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution of the State of California. Against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And I will bear true faith and allegiance. To the Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution of the State of California. I take this obligation freely. Without any mental reservations. For purpose of evasion. And that I will well and faithfully. Discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. Thank you, gentlemen. I asked Chief Burrell if you wanted to do a public swearing again, and having gone through that once, we declined. So let's see if we get all this in the same picture. Tracy.
I already took one, but I'm back. Chief Varela, did Chief Varela add in?
Yes, Chief. Yes, there we go. I'll get rid of this, although I do like to have control. Thank you. Thank you all. And beginning with Judge Branco, if you wouldn't mind doing a quick introduction and remarks.
I hope I can make this very quick. My name is Gordon Branco. I served as a judge in Alameda County for over 36 years. I feel very honored and flattered to be able to serve on this board. I definitely, though retired, I definitely have an interest in reducing recidivism and community rehabilitation. And so this seems like a good fit. And I'm representing the Judicial Council, to whom I'm also very appreciative.
Judge. Great to have you. Secretary Diaz?
Just honored to be sitting on this board. It's just really an extension and expansion of my corrections experience. And really, for me, it's an ability for me to just grow in my understanding of corrections and how we can impact the lives of those that are entrusted to us from the courts and the counties. I do believe we contribute to true public safety in our communities. And I really enjoy being part of that.
Thank you, Secretary. Sheriff Gore?
Thank you, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to take a couple of comments here. After criminal justice realignment, I couldn't have been prouder of the way the public safety community in San Diego came together and really looked at the realignment and shifting of responsibilities from the state to the county. And I couldn't be prouder of some of the things we've accomplished working with the BSCC. They've been very supportive of our efforts. And I think together we're making a change in people's lives. And I'm proud of that. And I'm just happy to be able to support. So thank you.
Thank you. Chief Varela?
Good morning, Mark Varela, Chief Probation Officer of Ventura County. I've been the Chief Probation Officer in Ventura County for about 8.5 years. I've been a probation officer for nearly 30 years, all with the same department in Ventura County. So may have grown up there and have served the community for proudly for that period of time, and one of two representatives of the Chief Probation Officers of California that sit on the BSCC. Looking forward to the work, and as Chair Penner mentioned, hit the ground running and excited for the work ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Certainly, we are excited to have new board members, and we are equally saddened to say goodbye to some very able board members that are not here today. They were invited, the record should reflect, but unable to make it. And as we welcome these members, we say goodbye to Chief Michelle Stray-Brown of San Bernardino County Probation Department, to Sheriff Jeff Dean of Ventura County Sheriff's Department, and to Secretary Kernan of CBCR. I know Chief Brown and Sheriff Dean are still working. Secretary Kernan last seen looking super happy in his retirement, but we will miss all of them. I would ask Adam to call the roll. We do have an unexpected but excused absence with Ms. Tarnow.
Right, Francine Tornauer received a work call very, very early this morning here in San Diego and had to fly back to Sacramento. So we already knew that Chief Bertola and Adam, one other.
Oh, Ms. Perez.
And Supervisor Perez, thank you, we're not able to attend. So we're waiting on Scott Budnick. He did text, he's off the airplane and should be here momentarily.
Do you want to hold the roll until he arrives?
We can call the rolls, that we can in the meeting, and then we can add Scott.
Okay,
As
Adam,
president.
I'm going to go forward.
Chair Penner.
Present?
Mr. Diaz.
Present.
Mr. Powers.
Present.
Mr. Groudon.
Here.
Mr. Gore.
Present.
Ms. Perez is absent today. Mr. Varela.
Here.
Mr. Otola is absent today. Mr. Barranco.
Present.
Mr. Bejarano.
Present.
Mr. Budnick, we are anticipating his arrival. Mr. Steinhardt is absent today. Ms. Tornauer is absent today. And Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. The record should also reflect that Executive Director Howard is with us. We've heard from her already today, but quietly sitting by her side is our counsel, Erin McGuire, who we will hear from later today. I would now invite Jeff Goldman, President of CPPCA from Nevada County Probation Department, and Michelle Nesbitt, Executive Director of CPPCA, forward. And let me begin by thanking you for such a great day yesterday. The only thing I was sad about is I watched a lot of awards. I kept trying to get up and receive one. I didn't get one like this. Huge oversight. But if you wouldn't mind filling us in on what's going on in the conference, and we welcome you.
Well, thank you, Chair Penner. It was actually truly our pleasure, and we welcome the board to San Diego. So we have a lineup of, we're offering 16 hours of STC at this conference. We have a very well-attended conference, and we're really happy to once again have the host for the BSCC board and provide education and training for probation, as well as over 70 parole agents here at this conference. So I'm going to hand it, if you don't mind, over to our president, Jeff Goldman, but we thank you.
And Jeff is in Nevada County, works with our board member, Chief Ortola. And so if we couldn't have him, you're just dandy.
So note that I'm here, even though he didn't.
Yes.
So I'm this year's current president of the California Probation, Parole, and Corrections Association. And like Michelle said, we want to welcome you to the 87th annual training conference. We've been around for 101 years. And we also want to thank you for the ongoing partnership and collaboration as CPPCA strives to provide ongoing professional development opportunities for its members. And I encourage you, if you get a chance, to look over our agenda for the week. I think you'll recognize the efforts of CPPCA is making and bringing in national level trainers on contemporary issues in corrections. On Tuesday, we had an 8-hour session on pretrial, which was very timely. I also encourage you, if you're out and about, to talk to some of the members and talk to them about the training that's being offered. We feel that the efforts that we're making at the state and local levels are in line and in collaboration in the efforts that BSCC is making, and we just want you guys to know that we appreciate the collaboration and the partnership.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy San Diego.
It's great. It's been very enjoyable, and I really appreciate what you do for the profession.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Powers, I think you're having your convening of your staff here.
Yes.
Very coinciding. You want to talk a little bit about that?
They're here.
That's, yet again.
Yeah, my executive team met yesterday afternoon.
It's great to have such a parole presence here at this convening. We've done a number of things since the last meeting, and now you're going to hear a little bit about one of our visits, which was to a program in San Diego. It's a collaboration with many of the county entities, so I won't spoil the goods here, except to tell you it was a meaningful, productive day, and it was invigorating because we do a lot of work in our agency to roll money out into hope that it goes to good uses. This is Prop 47 funding that has benefited San Diego County, and they are great stewards of the money. And I think we're going to hear from them today in a really positive fashion. We went to the Riverside RSAT program. We hope to eventually have them come present to the board. So down the agenda, you will hear from San Diego. Until then, we go to our most important part of the meeting, the executive director's report. Hey.
So sorry. That's a personnel matter on my phone. I do apologize, that's a little embarrassing. Nonetheless, good morning and welcome to our new board members. It's
Do
really.
you want to step up to a microphone?
Sure, I got one.
Are you have one? I mean, we can hear you, but I'm worried about people in the back of the room.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am happy to be here today, happy to see our long-serving board members and now a wonderful mix of new board members just sworn in this morning. I would like to provide you with a few updates on some grant-related news of interest and with an awareness that for the new board members, I might give a little teeny bit more background just to, by way of not giving you too much alphabet soup and just throwing it at you. But from our Correction Planning and Grants Program Division, CPG, I have a few status updates and some good news on one of our federal grants, at least we hope. We had advised the board at a recent meeting that the Bureau of Justice Assistance, BJA, which administers the residential substance abuse treatment funding, anticipated an increase in that award amount this year. So although we don't have the final word, we have been advised that there's an increase of 45% over the 2017-18 award. So we're looking at receiving in the neighborhood of $2.2 million for that competitive grant program. Absolutely terrific program that in recent years has been in operation in 4 different counties. So that's an increase from about $977,000 last year up to about $2.2 million. So really exciting news. When that funding does come through, as it is anticipated to do, we will bring an item to the board to allow us to fully fund the Santa Cruz County Sheriff's Office proposal. And that had received only partial funding when this was
before the board recently. They had requested 314,000, but only received 106,000. And then with the release of the 18-19 funds, we'll come back to you later with recommendations on those remaining funds. In other grant-related news, as many of you are aware, in the budget, there were two substantial new grant programs that were given to the Board of State and Community Corrections to administer. And we have been working hard after this board at the July meeting began the BSC formation process by appointing co-chairs to both the Youth Reinvestment Grant. David Steinhardt, I apologize, David wanted us to let you know that he really wanted to be here today and unfortunately was not able to fly. Linda will have a statement from him later in the meeting, but wanted to just acknowledge some tremendous work that David Steinhardt and co-chair Chief Mark Varela have been doing in working with staff to review and identify potential members of that executive steering committee. We had a really, really wonderful response in terms of statements of interest from people with lots of different kinds of subject matter and background. So we are working on getting that ESC membership finalized. Hope to do that fairly soon and start having meetings. And we're also planning for the Youth Reinvestment Grant to initiate a contract with a state college or university for the evaluation component. That's one of the things that was called for in the statute. On the Adult Reentry Executive Steering Committee, this board appointed Chair Linda Penner and Francine Tornor to co-chair that group. We are continuing to review statements of interest and are working on getting that committee firmed up and a similar process started there. So two very different kinds of grants, the Youth Reinvestment Grant focusing on pre-arrest diversion programs and the Adult Reentry Grant focusing on reentry needs for people coming out of state prisons. So really nice reflection of the breadth of kind of issues that this board gets into. In the Title II, which is funding that comes through the Juvenile Justice Delinquency and Prevention Act, which is federal legislation, one of the requirements of receiving those funds is that we have a state advisory committee. So it's amazing how many different shorthands we have to work through. So for our new members, the State Advisory Committee on Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, which has the heartbreaking acronym of SACJAB, is the governor recently appointed two new members to that group. And when we have a chance to bring you Title II related business, we'll tell you more about that. That committee has been very, very actively reinvigorated in the last about year and a half or so with the appointment of a new chair, Rachel Rios, who's doing just wonderful work. And the requirements in the federal statute indicate various slots that have to be filled in terms of background. One of the requirements is that 1/5 of the committee members need to be youth, and that means appointed before age 22. The governor appointed a terrific young woman named Vanessa Nahar from the Sacramento area to fill a youth slot. We also have a woman with prior system involvement and lived experience who's now working on a wonderful project called the Prison Reentry Program at the Young Women's Freedom Center in San Francisco. Her name is Anika Mota, and she also was appointed by the governor. So we look forward to keeping you informed about the work of that committee. There will be an executive steering committee working to develop the RFP for Title II funding and tribal funding under the new state plan that this board approved. We will be posting some required reports to our website and just wanted to make you aware of that as well. I'd like to also ask you to be aware that we provide, again, for the benefit of our new members, in each board binder during the legislative session, we provide a list and a table of bills that are pending in the legislature that have a fairly direct effect on our board operations, either the creation of a new grant program or something that we want to be sure that the local detention facilities are aware of in terms of new requirements. And you'll see at info tab number 3, the summary report with the 2017 legislative session just having ended. So these were all the bills that we were tracking because of a fairly direct effect on the BSCC. You'll see that quite a few of these did not make it all the way through the legislative process, but in terms of new requirements coming our way, probably the most noteworthy or largest impact bill on this list is SB 10, the bail reform bill, and understanding that there are, of course, all kinds of things going on, the possibility of a referendum right now. Nonetheless, I want to point out that there is a requirement for the board, and that's to contract for an independent evaluation of the bail reform work. Any other ledge items that you'd like to highlight here? Okay, not at this point, and we're always happy to answer any questions that you may have about pending bills. And that concludes my report. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Any questions from board members? Seeing none, I'd like to remind the audience, as we move into the formal agenda, if you have questions or comments or want to speak at any time, there are cards located by the entrance that, if you wouldn't mind filling them out and providing them to Adam and Tracy, I think is how we do this, and then on a particular item, your name will be called and you can come forward at the appropriate time. Moving on now to consent items, and the only, can we take a vote without Scott, or we have a quorum? We have a quorum. Okay. We have a number of board members who weren't here for that meeting, so there'll be an abstention. We still have a quorum?
How many abstentions?
Well, none of these people were here for the meeting, so they can't adopt the minutes.
The vote is majority of members present. We have 5 aye votes. I believe we have a sufficient number of members to have a motion and a second.
Wow.
Is absent at the last meeting.
Yeah, so I only see,
Oh,
I only see 4.
never mind. I was counting Mr. Powers, I believe. Counting me what?
Jared was there at the July meeting, and when we were in Palm Springs.
I apologize. Or I cannot hear.
So can we do it with
I'm
4?
sorry, Mr. Burrow is on.
Yeah, Mr. Burrell was there.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
Well, it was telephonic, so you don't have to apologize.
It's
I'm
hard.
sorry. You couldn't see the
I
people
didn't
in the
see
room who were
it.
not in. We're gonna allow for that. Okay, then I'm gonna ask for approval of item A on the consent agenda. On the minutes,
I'll move to approve the July 12th board meeting.
in a second.
And I will second it.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? You're abstaining. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Moving on. Any public comment on the minutes from the last meeting before we go on? Okay. Moving on now to item B under discussion items. The proposed calendar. I believe Executive Director Howard is going to discuss that.
I often say scheduling meetings is one of the hardest parts of our job. I hope that Scott Budnick has had a chance to review these dates. We typically have the first board meeting of the year in February, but we took a very careful look at the planning horizon for our new grants, and we do need a January meeting next year. So I'd like to, I'm not sure, Aaron, if you should maybe wait on the vote to make sure Scott's okay with it. We may have to reopen this issue. So I think what I would like to do is to ask the board members who are here, if you know at this point for the suggested 2019 meeting dates, which you have at agenda item tab E, are those dates looking good at this point? Excellent. And there's Scott. Do you agree, Scott? Welcome. Scott, and I have a chance to say, I'm really sorry about your flight delay this morning. We are looking at the proposed meeting dates for 2019. Did you have a chance to review those? It's under tab B. Just want to be sure that none of those looks problematic for you, so we can button down the schedule. You're good with those? Thank you. So, Madam Chair?
Yes, so looking for a motion and a second on adopting the meeting schedule for 2019.
So moved.
First, and a second. We have a second, all in favor?
We need to
Aye.
ask a vote.
Public comment.
Oh, I apologize. Any public comment on the agenda item referencing our schedule for 2019? Do you have any speaker cards? Seeing none, I have a first and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Moving on to item C, the Prop 47 update, and invite Ricardo Goodrich forward.
And Madam Chair, before we begin this item, we have some part of the discussion on the cost extension. I believe you would ask Sheriff Gore to recuse himself at this time. San Diego County is currently receiving from funding. And I would look to any of the board members who would be initially recused just on this item with respect to the cost extension.
And does that require Sheriff Gore to leave the room?
Sheriff Gore, we do ask that you.
So yeah, you're new to the board, but we actually don't go too far. We'll come to find it when the time is ready. And once again, this is a reminder, anybody who wants to speak to the Prop 47 extension of costs and the item that we're going to hear now, please fill out a speaker's card. And with that, Ricardo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Madam Chair and board members. My name is Ricardo Goodrich, field representative with the Corrections Planning and Grants Program Division. Agenda item C requests board approval of a no-cost 12-month extension for current Proposition 47 grantees. The extension would allow grantees additional time to expend their existing awards to account for startup activities that delayed the initiation of service delivery. Again, to our new board members, I'd like to extend a warm welcome on behalf of the Corrections Planning and Grant Programs Division. So behind you, also there's a PowerPoint for those of you that prefer to stare at the PowerPoint rather than listen to me. I will not be offended. And again, for the new board members in particular, I will provide a brief overview of Prop 47, the grant program, and the activities that have led to today's request. So Prop 47 was a voter-approved initiative on the November 2014 ballot. You can see its purpose there up on the screen, but just in terms of some highlights, its purpose is to ensure that prison spending is focused on violent and serious offenses, to maximize alternatives for non-serious, non-violent crimes, and to invest savings from the initiative into prevention and support programs, victim services, and mental health and drug treatment. And for those of you that are following along in your binder, the full text of Prop 47 can be found in attachment C1. So savings from the enactment of Prop 47 are used to fund grant programs. 3 state agencies are tasked with administering the Prop 47 funds. As you can see there on the pie chart, the California Victims Compensation Board receives 10% of the state savings. The Department of Education receives 25%, and the BSCC receives 65%. So in addition to Prop 47, Assembly Bill 1056 provided additional criteria. So the Prop 47 grant program must be competitive, provided to public agencies, support mental health services, substance use disorder treatment, diversion programs for people in the criminal justice system, emphasize programs that reduce recidivism. Services should be targeted or designed for people who have been arrested, charged with, or convicted of a criminal offense and have a history of mental health issues or substance use disorders. And AB 1056 further clarified that juveniles are eligible to receive services. So similarly, the full text of Assembly Bill 1056 can be found in your binders as attachment C2. So in 2015 and 16, the BSCC held a series of regional meetings throughout the state. The board chair, a few board members, and some staff drove from Sacramento to San Diego, holding public listening sessions in various communities along the way. And on the screen, you can see the black text. Those visits included Oakland, Fresno, San Bernardino, et cetera, et cetera. We bonded. It was very much a road trip. I do say so myself. But it was all great. The meetings were an opportunity for the public to provide comment on the areas that they believe the board should focus Prop 47 priorities on. And in addition to these meetings that were typically held at a time that was convenient to the public, several folks provided feedback electronically and through subsequent board meetings that were held. So again, for the benefit of our new board members, one of the terms that you will hear a lot is an executive steering committee. So for the purposes of not making assumptions, just going to give you just a brief outline of what it is. So as the need arises, staff may request from you the use of an executive steering committees to perform various functions. So executive steering committees, or ESCs for short, are composed of stakeholders and subject matter experts who volunteer their time and knowledge on various topics. The body can gather for a handful of meetings or meet over an extended period of time to produce a work product. The ESC provides written recommendations to the board, and those are typically presented to you by staff. Once their assignment is complete, the ESC disbands. And so in the context of today, the Prop 47 ESC helped to design the request for proposal and provided formal recommendations to the board. Speaking of that lovely committee, on that screen there, you can see our board members, our committee members, I'm sorry. So the ESC was co-chaired by Supervisor Perez and Scott Budnick. And again, we thank them both for volunteering many hours throughout this process. The Prop 47 ESC included formerly incarcerated people, experts on mental health, substance use disorder treatment, diversion programs, reentry, and housing. And again, it was a very diverse group of people that really took to heart the feedback that was provided to the public, as well as bringing their own experiences to the table. That's right, and Christine's here. So grant development. So some of the key activities that the board approved, and again, these are just some quick highlights. The request for proposal development process, which occurred from June to October 2016. Don't worry, we didn't meet every single day, although it may have felt like it at the time. They were spaced out to allow folks sufficient time between meetings. The board also approved the release of the RFP in November 2016. And then again, ultimately, in June 2017, the board approved the funding recommendations. So again, just for just a high level kind of a recap. So 58 proposals were received in response to the RFP. Over $225 million were requested. Ultimately, the board was able to fund 23 proposals, and that amounted to about $103 million spread out statewide just about. And those grantees have approximately 38 months as a write down to expend those grant funds. So the next two slides provide the names of the public agencies that the board provided funding to. Some of them you may recognize, some of them may seem familiar. But just to kind of give you a sense of what they're doing, and again, thinking back to the intent of Prop 47. Services include everything from individual and family therapy, case management, system navigators for both the criminal justice and various public health systems at the local level, various legal services, diversion programs, and goes without saying, but several subcontracts to community-based providers to deliver some core services. If you're interested in learning more about these 23 sites, attached in C3 in your binder includes a brief synopsis, very brief synopsis, on the different types of programs that these public agencies are providing, either directly or with the aid of their subcontracted partners. So in terms of technical assistance, just to give you a sense of what staff does to assist our grantees. So at the very beginning, July 13 and 14, grantees were able to attend a 2-day orientation in Sacramento. The purpose of that orientation was to cover everything from programmatic responsibilities, fiscal responsibilities, administrative responsibilities, data collection, and provide an opportunity for them to meet with each other. A supplemental 1-day training was held in Long Beach in conjunction with the National Criminal Justice Association. There are regional quarterly conference calls that are held on a recurring basis. We obviously provide technical assistance by telephone, and we also provide site visits. So just to kind of give you a sense. With that said, while efforts were made to kind of proactively deliver assistance, some challenges did kind of present themselves, which is in essence why we're here today. So as the public agencies and their sub-providers in the very beginning attempted to deliver services, some of the bumps that they ran into were unsatisfactory responses to local RFPs. So that can include everything from maybe releasing an RFP on more than one occasion because the response was low, all the way into perhaps the responses that were provided were not as such that they felt comfortable going into contract. Speaking of that kind of second bullet there, the local contracting rules and procedures, once you get to the city and the county level, there are their own processes that they need to follow, and at times that can be time consuming. Similarly, negotiations, especially between some of our public health agencies and our providers, prove to be complex. And then also, we've heard a few sites talk about the drug medical health certification process being lengthy, and certainly has made an impact. So all that to say that grantees have worked diligently to address these challenges, but the delays have impacted their service delivery. So given the aforementioned challenges, many grantees will be unable to provide all of the services they're funded for without additional time. Current contracts are due to expire in August 2020. A no-cost 12-month extension to August 2021 would allow grantees an additional year to spend their award and provide services. Current grantees would not receive new or additional money. Rather, they would have additional time to provide services in line with their grant agreement. If this item is approved, staff would offer a no-cost extension to grantees and amend their contracts accordingly. And we anticipate that many grantees will take advantage of this if the board does in fact. So at this time, staff requests that the board approve a no-cost 12-month extension for current Proposition 27 grantees. The extension would allow current grantees additional time to run their programs to account for time-consuming startup activities that delay the initiation of service delivery. This concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Any questions from any members of the board regarding the extension? I just have one. The graphic you put up with the state of California that had the different colors, is it color coded to who was given a grant, or is it just?
It's just free for
It's
the
just a
bar.
beautiful
It's
color.
just free bar.
Well,
If you want to.
in the future, do you have color coded?
Absolutely, yeah. Let's keep that list going.
And anything else? Any public comment on the issue? Any cards?
Not on this one.
Anybody who forgot to fill out a card that wants something to say? We never do that, but I'm feeling generous today. Okay. All right. Seeing none, I'd ask for a motion and a second.
Motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Did you get names in?
Yes.
Okay.
Motion second.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Let the record reflect Sheriff Gore is out of the room, but coming back in directly. If he's gone too far, it's going to be a big problem. There it is. Now I would like to invite some guests that we've been requested to come in today from San Diego. If Dorothy Thrush, Andrew Law, and Sandy Keaton would come forward, they're going to do a brief presentation on what Prop 47 has done for San Diego County and how they're utilizing the money. This was one of our visits, and as both Katie and I alluded to, it was really informative and energizing.
Well, thank
Hi,
you.
Dorothy, how are
Fine, thank you.
I'd like to thank the board and the chair for the opportunity to share information with you about the San Diego region. My name is Dorothy Thresh.
Dorothy, can I stop you just a minute? Is it possible to bring 3 chairs up here so you don't have these poor people standing here like this? And they could sit down until it's time for them to speak? I didn't mean for the audience, it's clearly Ricardo. Ricardo's remiss in chairs.
What had happened was.
And you could color coded that. Okay, sorry, Dorothy.
No, thank you. And I just introduced myself. I'm Dorothy Thresh with Chief Operations Officer with the San Diego County Chief Administrative Office Public Safety Group. I'm joined by Ms. Angela Law, the Chief of the Neighborhood Justice and Collaborative Courts Unit with the San Diego City Attorney, Ms. Sandra Keaton, Senior Criminal Justice Research Analyst with the San Diego Association of Governments. So these materials are also printed out for you and displayed on the screen. The goals of the BSCC, the county, the city, and our community partners all came together in the design supported by the Proposition 47 grant. And the BSCC's program has been an important catalyst for system change in our community. The Prop 47 mission and goals of this program align with the San Diego County Board of Supervisors Live Well vision. That's a collective effort to support a region that's building better health, living safely and thriving. And to achieve that, we need to break down barriers to success for those involved in the criminal justice system. So our San Diego project involves 2 jurisdictions, 3 programs, 1 mission to deliver comprehensive services. Through our county programs in the central region, we have our Strengths program. In our north region, our Recovery for Life program. And the city of San Diego has the Misdemeanors At-Risk Track, or SMART program, which they'll describe. The people that we serve in these programs have faced many challenges, so the funds have given us this opportunity to test new approaches to address substance use needs, identify mental health needs, and respond to their housing needs. And all of these services are provided in each of the 3 programs. The shared state and local goals gave us this opportunity to leverage state funds and match them with a significant amount of local resources. $6.5 million of local resources match our grant award of $6 million to reach this underserved population. The state support through the BSCC is a key catalyst for change. In addition to providing these services, the BSCC grant has created momentum and focus on these populations. It keeps the focus on building the capacity of the community to directly serve these individuals, which is exactly what we continue to hear every time we speak to our community partners. So the work in this project is already helping to guide discussions for other innovative service projects. So we draw on our experience here and use it throughout our other work. And this first year, we've learned a lot. The first year's been about learning. The BSCC's requirement for evaluation will help us sustain what works as we continue to learn. In addition to doing the right thing, we will know we are doing it right and achieving what we intend and document the learning. Here's a quick look of our timeline, our progress to date. Following the award in June of 2017, we issued a request for proposals for 1 region. In that next August, we amended 2 contracts in September and 1 for the city's attorney's project, which was already underway as a pilot. In December, the city of San Diego purchased and received approval to renovate a building. And in May, the region's 3rd program started operations. So although there were several steps along the way, we're now ready. All of our services are in place. And we rely on input from our partners within the project and in the community to make our decisions. In our first local advisory committee meetings, we created principles based on the guiding principles of the grant to guide our program development and all of our future decisions. So these guidelines led us to a commitment to pass through 89% of the grant funds to community providers and combine the funds with local resources to address needs of underserved individuals and build capacity of community-based organizations. Now, to stay on track with those goals, we meet monthly with a project coordinating council, which includes the contracted providers, our county and city partners, behavioral health and justice partners, and the evaluators. And then we continue our local advisory committee meetings to get feedback from our community. The city attorney's office is also inviting community input as they create a new service location. Now, the best description of what's happening with our services comes directly from the people who are served. And I think we'll try here with a short
I
video.
was a drug addict every day, using drugs for the past 10 years straight. And I didn't think that there was ever going to be a hope for me to stop. And today, by the grace of God, from BCS, I haven't been clean and sober. I went to court to clear my warrant, and they cleared the warrant. So at that point, I was going to be able to go to the women's shelter, but my public defender was like an angel. She whispered in my ear that there's a lot of services available for Prop 47, and if I wanted to speak to a gentleman named Gary up in the hallway. And something just came over me, and because I was done with court, I could have left, but something told me to go and talk to him. And he told me about BCS. He told me that there's help available for me, and he set me up with an appointment to come in for an intake the very following day.
So as Catherine mentioned, engagement and outreach occurs at the court. Public defenders make referrals to our program staff who are stationed right outside the program and meet with clients. If the clients are eligible, they're immediately scheduled for an intake within hours or at most a day or two. Once enrolled, they're assigned a case manager, a housing navigator connected to substance abuse disorder treatment, and other supportive services as indicated by their needs assessment. So that's a quick overview of some of the things we're doing with the county. I'd now like to invite the San Diego City Attorney's Office.
Good morning, Board and Madam Chair. Thank you for having us here. My name is John Hermling. I'm the Assistant City Attorney over our Criminal and Community Justice Division here in the City of San Diego. And the City Attorney, Mariella, wanted to be here. She had a conflict, but she couldn't make it. But on behalf of our office, we definitely want to thank the board and the state for the opportunity for us to show and showcase the good work and the programs that our office is doing here in the city of San Diego. The SMART program has been a program that we've been working on actually for a couple of years. It took a lot of time meeting with government entities, non-government entities, community members, city staff, and numerous individuals, county staff, to get everybody on board to kind of understand what this is, to move this forward in. And some of the people are here today also that's been working on it. So I also want to thank the board for the reviewing our proposals that we sent and approving the grants so we can get the money to make this thing really take off and show that it can work. And also, I also like to thank you all for coming down whenever you came down. I think it was maybe a month ago now, it seems, and you all went out and looked at the site that we're looking at to put this building so we can expand the program, and also met some of our providers as well. So want to thank you for that. And now I'm going to introduce Angie Law. She's the chief of our Neighborhood Justice and Collaborative Courts Unit, and she's kind of the heartbeat and the push behind all this. So I'll let her speak. Thank you.
Thank you, John, and thank you, board, for inviting us to speak. So as Dorothy discussed, obviously this is a problem that has expanded since the passage of Prop 47. The City Attorney's Office specifically, which prosecutes misdemeanors in the city of San Diego after the passage of Prop 47, saw a 185% increase in drug and theft related cases without really meaningful incentives for offenders to complete diversion programs and without a lot of access to services. So in December of 2016, the City Attorney's Office started a pilot program called the SMART program. SMART stands for San Diego Misdemeanors at Risk Track. And it was a program that was started in collaboration with the City Attorney's Office, the San Diego Police Department, Sheriff Gore and his wonderful team, the Superior Court, the San Diego County Public Defender's Office, Family Health Centers of San Diego, which is a community-based organization, Health and Human Services and Behavioral Health Services, the ACLU, and the Housing Commission. So what the program essentially is designed to provide is individualized case management for misdemeanor offenders. It provides substance abuse treatment and tailored housing plans for up to 2 years. And the program follows generally the harm reduction model, designed to minimize harmful effects and negative consequences associated with drug use and meeting clients specifically where they're at. So the idea is to not only reduce drug use for the participant, but also to increase their days in treatment, provide them more access to healthcare, reduce court appearances, emergency room visits, and obviously recidivism. So the way the program works is participants are determined eligible by the City Attorney's Office or law enforcement. It is for offenders who have 1 or more misdemeanor drug offenses since the passage of Prop 47 and who have been arrested at least twice in the past 12 months for quality of life offenses. Neither of those requirements is for a conviction. It is merely an arrest from law enforcement or an offense for drug offenses. We do have disqualifiers, and those disqualifiers are individuals who have convictions for murder, arson, sex offenses, and individuals who are 290 sex registrants. People who are currently in jail or on felony parole or probation for drug sales, individuals who are seriously mentally ill, and people who are currently participating in the other collaborative courts offered in San Diego County, like drug court, behavioral health court, or veterans treatment court. So the way that the program works is it is offered at any time in the criminal justice continuum, and oftentimes it's offered again and again and again. So the first point at which somebody can be offered the SMART program is pre-filing offers. In effect, what it looks like is when a law enforcement officer contacts an individual and determines that they may be eligible, they have the option of giving that person information about the program and letting them get to the program, be assessed, and accept the program in lieu of their case being filed. If a person doesn't accept that and the case is filed, the program is again offered at the arraignment stage, at the readiness stage. It's even offered as an alternative sentencing post-conviction, and it is even offered after somebody has been sentenced. We've had more than one participant come back to us or contact their public defender and contact our office after they've previously been sentenced, after they've turned us down and said, you know what, I think I want that program. And we will offer it again at that point. And then there's also an element of social contact, completely voluntary, made by family health centers, outreach workers, individuals who don't have a case pending who can still be assessed and access the program. And once the referrals are made, an individual is assessed by Family Health Centers of San Diego, and the assessment determines what their level of need is. So treatment is expected to be approximately 6 months, but ultimately it's dependent on what the client needs. So that might be anything from detox, residential rehab, intensive outpatient treatment, just depending on what it is that they need. And then, like I said, there's also case management and housing. The case management includes GED services, access to job training, job readiness, transportation, bus passes, MTS passes. And then the placement in housing also includes housing navigation. Obviously, the idea is to transition those individuals into permanent housing. But in the program, regardless of how long the treatment plan is, they are guaranteed housing for up to 2 years during that transition period. So with that, the expansion project, thanks in large part to the grant from the BSCC, in addition to approximately $12 million of leveraged funds from the City of San Diego. In December of last year, as Dorothy mentioned, the City of San Diego purchased a facility that we are expanding for the SMART program. It is expected to open in January of 2019 and will have 70 beds. The schematics include information about there being on-site treatment rooms, a clinic facility, laundry, kitchens, media, fitness rooms, as well as rooms for the clients and the participants. And the second story is much of the same for the facility, including all of the on-site treatment rooms. So with that, at this point, I can happily say that with the expansion from the pilot program, which was 10 beds to 20 beds with the addition of the BSCC grant funds, as of this morning, we have 12 individuals who are in treatment and beds in our program. We have 7 pending assessment and release from jail, and we have 1 pre-filing bed open at this moment. So thank you very much for your time, and if you have any questions about this program, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much.
I have a quick question. On the pre-filing offers, so you have a beat officer who comes in contact with an individual and tells them rather than a citation or arrest, I'm offering this service to you right now. And so do they hold on to that citation, or how does that work?
So at the moment that they provide, at the moment they're deciding whether or not to offer services to this individual, it often works with the San Diego Police Department's homeless outreach team. They will provide an information pamphlet, a piece of paper that provides information to the individual. The citation is sent to our office and we basically hold on to it. If the individual goes to family health centers and completes at least the basic intake process within 7 days, then the case is not filed.
Great idea. Thank you.
And the last thing I want to just point out is the facility itself was an old hotel.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, we have got to see that. Was it just vacant?
At the time that it was purchased, it was not vacant. So it was a Super 8 hotel on Palm Avenue. And it was not occupied as to full capacity at the time that it was purchased. But the renovations have been done, and as you can see from the renderings and the schematics, it is going to be an absolutely beautiful facility.
Bit of a roadmap for our next grant, the adult grant. We have to have some beds there somewhere, so it's great.
And with that, I will turn it over to Sandy Keaton from Sandy. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you so much. I have horrible allergies, I apologize. Thank you so much for asking a little bit about the evaluation. Okay. Yes, okay. So the evaluation that we have been part of this process from the get-go. I think that's a really important piece, and we're connected with the process and impact evaluation. So basically what we're doing is we are documenting what's happened and how it's happened, when it happened, and to what effect it happens. The ultimate outcome, of course, is reduced recidivism, and we are including the BSCC definition of recidivism with any new conviction, felony, or misdemeanor, or commitment during the 3-year time span. However, we have expanded upon that to provide our local stakeholders with more information about the actual lifespan of reconviction. So we are looking at 3 years prior, but then we're also looking at 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, or 36 months. So we can do some type of survival analysis to determine if there's any type of cut points or critical mass area that we needed to pay attention to going forward. And we're also very committed to this word called action research. And basically what that is we're in your business. We are part of the process, the solution from the get-go. We've participated in over 30 meetings, trying to and succeeding, I think, in creating an evaluation design that not only is semi-user friendly, but will also allow us to provide you all, our stakeholders, with a very detailed picture of what happened in San Diego. The action research piece, I think, is critical to this type of project, because this is a project that we're learning from as we go. We don't necessarily know all what's going to happen or what's going to occur, or who the people are, what are some of the barriers and challenges. And as you can see, along the way, we've already uncovered challenges that we've altered programming to address because we've had the data. Specifically, we are providing information in a very timely fashion. We provide monthly reports. We meet monthly with the providers in the program. And at the beginning, we spoke with them and asked them how they want to see the information, what information they want to see. So we provide these dashboards, basically, which are hopefully easy to read, and they're expanding as we go. So just to kind of give you a sense, we'll provide who's come in during that month, where our cumulative numbers are, what their needs are, where we're seeing attrition, where we're seeing fall off. And what we've done thus far is for example, at the beginning, we found that there was a big disconnect between the public defender whispering in somebody's ear and walking literally a yard out the courtroom to meet with Gary. I mean, that was a place of vacuum. We don't know what happened in between there. So the programs themselves then discussed, okay, this is an issue, let's work with it. What they implemented, they provided some incentives for the process. They did more education for the public defenders. So the point being is that if you have the information, you could find out where things are falling off and then adjust it. It's not a failure, it's about learning as we go. And the program's been very, very proactive in embracing the data and then using it, which thrills me to no end. This is my last slide. And what I want to emphasize here is that this process is very time and labor intensive. Shout out to the programs for sitting with us, but we've also really worked to try to leverage existing resources. We do not want to recreate the data wheel. San Diego County has been very proactive throughout the region in collecting information that can inform all types of different programming. So we really leverage those, tapping into existing large databases and duplicating the variables that are already in place. For example, how you're defining housing. We had 3 meetings to make sure that we are all defining housing the same exact way, and that it filtered up to how Sandwich, which is our local health and human service agency, is collecting data that corresponds with Medi-Cal or Medicare data. So you can see is that we're not out there making up the variables. We really are being conscientious of where the information comes from, not only because we want to be able to speak in terms which other entities and agencies can understand, but also that our program providers are burdened with collecting additional information. We really worked with them, and so we created a system where we've created a data system that then they can pull down data that they enter for another program. So they're not double entering the data, which not only helps quality, but it also, I think, is less taxing on them. And like I said, we're all just speaking the same common language. At this point, all 3 entities throughout the region are collecting the same exact data variables across all 3 agencies. They're all using the same tool. It took a lot of effort on their part and patience, but that's what's in place at this point. I think that is kind of a broad overview of what the evaluation is doing. I think the key takeaway is, one, is that it really is an iterative process that has to start at the beginning. If it doesn't start at the beginning, the evaluator has to be deeply entrenched in the system and the process so that the exchange is back and forth. Programs forming the information, and the data, and the evaluators providing them information which to make decisions. Thank you very much.
And thank you. Just to close, I'd like to thank the board again for this opportunity to think really broadly about services. We've heard about the different kinds of services, the different points at which people are touched by the service and interact with the system. And we do this with a primary focus on the partnership in the community. This is one really exciting project that we're using the learning from this to help us with all the very dynamic things going on. San Diego County, on July 1st, we entered the drug Medi-Cal organized delivery system here in the county. That came after this project. This project helped us get ready for some of those big changes. We're continuing to struggle, as every community is, with the housing resource crisis, which a lot of these people interact we find they have high housing needs. And around us, the criminal justice system will continue to change. As you mentioned, a lot of work happened in the legislature this session, and things will be new and different, and this helps position us to be ready. So thank you on behalf of the county, the system partners, from the momentum created by this program, and most of all from the participants. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dorothy, and everybody who's saying it. Does the board have any questions or comments? Please.
I just want to say I appreciate the fact that you allow people to choose to participate in different phases of the criminal justice process. I think that's an area where other programs, some of the programs are in error maybe. I think it's important to keep offering that because people as they're moving through, they might change their mind and choose to participate. I think some of the other systems out there are too rigid. So I appreciate that.
Madam Chair, just a quick comment. I just want to let you guys know this is incredibly creative, very impressive collaboration, and the commitment between the city and the county to make this happen. Purchase of a hotel and converting it into something like this is fantastic. So I just wanted to pass on those comments.
Well, only in San Diego. We went to the Episcopal Community Services, which has been existing, is it 90 years? They were in existence 90 years, some incredibly long period of time. And we listened to participants talk about being taken to their housing. It was only going to be temporary, I mean, maybe 6 months, they could stay, I can't recall exactly. And they were telling the other ones, you're not going to believe this house. This is, you really get to stay there. And there was such excitement, and they felt, honored and sort of, really bought in because of the kinds of care and options they were giving. So there was a lot of creative housing solutions provided, and as always, the research and evaluation portion was very impressive. A word they used in San Diego that Katie and I walked away repeating to ourselves and hoping to repeat as we roll out our next grant funding was low barrier contracts. Because what we know is when we begin to work with CBOs, we have a hard time interfacing government with, small CBOs out. And we really hope that we can yet again pull for something from San Diego and use it as our own. So I really appreciated the experience. Sheriff, you got it going on in your town. That's why we have you on the board now. We hope you reproduce this all over in 57 other counties. It's a small job, but I think we can get it done. Scott, to your labor over, the rollout of Prop 47 and all you did in the millions of meetings, because I know how much you enjoy those. This is a great setting the stage of how it can be done. Next week, we are going to, and I don't know where this is exactly, except I passed it on my way to assist you, the city of Corning. Not to be confused with dishware. But it's up there somewhere, so we're gonna go see a very small program and its rollout, and we will report back to you with that. Anything else? Okay, thank you. Because we never get tired of seeing Ricardo. Here he comes. To take on item D.
By the way, that's Tehama County, City of Corning.
Is it Tehama County, the city of Corning?
I had to look at it.
Yeah, thanks.
And Madam Chair, before we begin this item, I know I've spoken to, and the county control the city applying for the funding. This is getting to the RFP development, so at this time, we would note for the record that you have a remote interest in the meeting government one, and will be using himself from the discussion. I'm gonna also look to former Chief Romano, whether or not we are going to stay or going to recuse. Going to recuse as well, and I would also look to Mr. Butnick real quick in terms of sitting on any boards of directors, which CBO might be applying to properly spend money, and whether or not we are inclined to keep at this time. You're fine with the first application. We have another one, actually, and now Madam Chair, we have dropped, unfortunately, to don't walk too far away, because we have dropped below our level to have a quorum for a board. At this time, what we would do is invoke what is known procedurally as the rule of necessity. This board is statutorily obligated to run the Prop 47 program. We need a quorum in order to effectuate the release and development of P. Even though we have our recused board members recusing themselves because of their remote interests, what we are going to do now is basically draw lots and ask one of our board members to come back so that we have a quorum, so that we then may vote on agenda item D. And I think the way we are going to draw lots for this, if I'm not mistaken, just a procedure. I'm going to assign 3 numbers. I'm going to assign Mr. Varela, Chief Varela a 1, Mr. Recorano a 2, and Scott Button a 3. I'm going to, at the ready, ask Ms. Howard to push the generate button on my random number generator.
You knew you had a random number generator.
We're all going through one.
Ready? Okay, do we want the camera on this?
No, you don't want the camera.
Generate, we got 3.
We got 3, which is going to be Mr. Button.
So
I'm
we
gonna
invite
ask-
Mr. Bunny back in?
Are there any questions? That's a little bit arcane procedurally, even from the audience. Is everybody with us on why we need to do what we're doing here to reestablish a quorum? Okay, very good, thank you.
I explained to Mr. Buddy that his name was pulled out of the hat. I have a better way of not going to do that. He does have a question to the council.
Sure. So can the organizations that I sit on the board of apply now that I'm sitting back in this room?
Yes, so by the rule of necessity, because.
Say no more.
Here's Mr. Budnick's worked with more than one attorney. Thank you, thank you. Okay, proceed, Ricardo, thank you.
Sure. So, good morning again, Madam Chair and board members. Again, my name is Ricardo Goodrich. So, agenda item D requests board approval for the development process for the second round of Proposition 47 awards. This item seeks board input on a new process for the next round of funding and future funding decisions. And again, I'll just point out behind you that there's a PowerPoint. It might be a little bit easier to track visually. So key takeaways from cohort 1 relevant to this item include some of the things that you see behind you. So the current grantees are funded with deposits from state fiscal year 16-17, 17-18, and 18-19. That second bullet will now be revised thanks to your prior action. So cohort 1 will now be under contract through to August 2021. Again, we appreciate that very much. And cohort 1 includes 23 grantees receiving approximately $103 million. So what is proposed? And again, this is all in detail in your agenda item. I'll try to just cover the big picture points there as well. So a series of changes are proposed for the next Prop 47 cohort based on staff experiences and grantee feedback. These include re-release of the Prop 47 RFP with technical amendments and an opportunity for public comment, increase in the timing of the cohort 2 grant cycle from 38 to 45 months, allocating state fiscal year 19-20 and 2021 funding to cohort 2, limited cohort 2 to new lead public agency applicants, and convening a scoring committee to read and rate proposals. So, well, now I'll just go through kind of each of those bulleted items that you see before you and kind of explain why we are proposing the proposal. So as it pertains to item 1, the release of the Prop 47 RFP. As you will recall from agenda item C, the initial RFP was released in November 2016 and awards were made in June 2017. And we've heard kind of a little bit earlier on, but many grantees experienced significant implementation delays that impacted service delivery. Consequently, the BSCC has not yet received meaningful data that would indicate whether substantive changes to the initial RFP are required or would even be beneficial. So in view of this, and specific to that first bullet item, we propose that staff update the RFP with technical amendments, post the amended RFP to the BSCC website and track changes, provide a 30-day comment period for the public to respond to the technical changes, update the RFP with proposed changes as appropriate, and provide the updated RFP to the board for approval at a future meeting. So now we're going to go to the second item on that list, another visual prompt for you. So as it pertains to the cohort 2 grant cycle, increasing the grant cycle from 38 to 45 months would acknowledge that the project requires an implementation period and builds it into that grant making process. So again, sometimes it's easier to visualize what we're talking about. So behind you, what we've done for ease of digestion is we've assumed again a 45-month period. As you can see, that second line, the contract would be effective August 2019. That's the effective date because we received the deposit in August 15, just for a little bit more detail. Again, now we would have an implementation period. As you can see on the right hand, the implementation period would cover August 2019 to December 2019 in this particular scenario. The intent of that, again, is to facilitate time for local procurement, hiring, training, any activities that might be needed to get the projects up and running. That said, if a project does not require an implementation period, it would just begin as soon as feasible, it would just be business as usual. But for those that do require that implementation period, we at least want to acknowledge it and build it in. On that fourth line there where it says services commence, so again, in this scenario, everyone will be providing services in this scenario come January 1 of 2020, and the service delivery would conclude on January 1 of 2023. And in fact, that actually gives us 3 clean years of service delivery. And then again, on that second to last line item, it says data evaluation period. Again, what we're proposing is to have a formal period outside of the service delivery period. So currently what many of our grants do is there's an artificial stop that the grantee has to meet, and that service delivery period is in essence kind of condensed. With this proposal, the service delivery period ends. There's a formal period to kind of capture all data and analysis, and then a final evaluation report in this scenario will be provided come May of 2023. So we'll go back now and talk about that third bullet, which is the cohort 2 funding. So again, in the initial RFP, the board allocated 3 years worth of funding to the first cohort. We're proposing to allocate 2 years worth of funding to give the board maximum flexibility. It's important to note that allocating 2 years would not prevent the board from making meaningful grant awards. So we're going to get to that in just a little bit. At this time, we do not have the specific amounts that will fund cohort 2. The Department of Finance will provide an estimate in the governor's 2019 proposed budget that will be released in January. That funding information will be added before the RFP is released to the field. But for purposes of today's conversation, we can remind you that the last 2 years of deposits have been in the ballpark of $40 million annually. The Department of Finance calculation is completed annually, and there are a number of factors that could impact that final number. In addition, the BSCC would account for the administrative costs that it takes to administer the grant. That said, and for the purpose of really receiving your input, for conceptual purposes, we're thinking in the ballpark of $75 million will be allocated to cohort 2. Again, that number could change based on the things I've just mentioned, but for today's discussion, keep the ballpark of around $75 million in your head. So responding to that second to last bullet that's up there. So limiting cohort 2 to new applicants would allow new public agencies to apply for funding. So as we talked about before, the first round of funding saw 58 public agencies apply, of which only 23 could be funded. So again, I think some of this might be a little bit easier to see visually, and I'll explain what you're looking at in just a bit. But one of the things that we want to think about as we get closer to the end, the process that we're proposing, this approach would mean that cohort 1 public agency grantees, AKA our current grantees, would not be eligible to apply for cohort 2, but they could apply for the yet to be determined cohort 3 funding. So what that looks like in terms of the screen that you have before you, So that green bar, the very top bar, the first part that's all solid green, that includes or represents the current grant agreements. The shaded part that's next to it, now with board approval, represents in essence a 12-month extension, which covers cohort 1. Cohort 2, which is now below it in that blue line, and again, that goes back to that sample agreement I showed you on the prior slide. That covers August of next summer through May of 2023 with all the things that we just described. And then the very bottom bar, again, for just ease of visualness, it assumes, again, kind of a 45-month period, similar to cohort 2, with the main difference being at this point that we do not yet know the exact funding amounts that were populated. But again, at least for visual purposes, the hope is that we can time it in such a manner that there would not be significant delays between cohort 1 and cohort 3, but with a lot more work on that to come. I'm going to go back for just a second to address the final bullet on that point there as well. And this speaks to the convening of a scoring committee. So again, especially for our newer members, so traditionally, the board convenes an executive steering committee, and they're tasked with developing the RFP, reading and rating proposals, and like I mentioned earlier, making funded recommendations. So in light of that first bullet item that we're presented today, a different type of committee will be needed for this process. So in essence, the role of the executive steering committee would be very different. The scoring committee would be convened for the purposes of reading and scoring and developing the proposal, as opposed to all the content that goes into making the RFP, which is what traditionally occurs in this process. That said, the scoring committee would still be fully briefed and trained on the RFP, how to read and rate proposals, and obviously they would still make the recommendations to the board. At a subsequent meeting, staff would request a chair for the scoring committee and also post on the website to request committee members to serve on that committee. So at this time, staff requests that the board approve the release of the initial Prop 47 RFP with suggested technical amendments and allow for public comment, approve the allocation of future funding to the next RFP, and limit cohort 2 to new public agency applicants, and approve the use of a scoring. This concludes staff's presentation.
Okay, there was a lot to take in. Back to the board for any discussion, questions?
Question. I guess I'm trying to weigh in my head the pros and cons versus limiting applicants. I could see instances where existing programs that were funded maybe could be expanded. Capacity could be increased, especially if they're successfully operating, or frankly, some sort of modification to work with the existing program or an additional component to the program. So I guess I'm trying to figure out if the, and I understand why you would want new ones, because you want other entities, but you've already got some folks who were successfully implemented, have the infrastructure, and frankly could probably stretch those existing dollars or those new dollars farther, as opposed to new applicants. And if you don't limit it to just new, then you've still got new applicants who can apply, and they're going to be rated against the same rating scale.
We had that discussion. Ricardo, go ahead and give your reaction to that, and I'll share next.
Yeah. So I think as you pointed out correctly, there isn't really kind of a right or wrong in this one. It really is, which is why we're bringing it to the board, kind of a philosophical conversation, right? So is the intent, as the board sees it, to provide as many new public agencies an opportunity to do the type of great programs that we've kind of described? Is the intent to say, you know, we funded this one approach, we know it works, let's continue to fund this in perpetuity? So we really wanted to leave it open and kind of present it to that way to the board and kind of have this conversation about philosophically, I mean, what do you think makes the most sense?
That doesn't really sway me that
excluding existing grant holders is providing a wider opportunity as opposed to only allowing new bidders.
One of my reactions was slightly different, although I agree with Ricardo, was that if you were already successful in this application process and then you were allowed to re-up, you're in a position where it might really require some very finite differences to not ensure successful programs would just be refunded a second time. And so this is, in my mind, is a bit of an effort to level the playing field for new incoming applicants, while with the extension of the 1 year and cohort 3 coming on board relatively soon, it seemed as though that might be the opportunity to expand that. I felt as though it wouldn't necessarily be a level playing field if we let people turn right around and apply.
Don't you ultimately want to fund the best programs? That's really what it comes down to.
Well, I think ultimately that's an excellent goal. I actually have more of an affinity to fund more programs and to hope that programs that are doing well, that are successful, that there's some sort of sustainability out there that will allow them to continue.
Is there a sustainability component to the submittal? In other words, do they have to provide us with some sort of plan that post Prop 47 funding that they believe they can operate the program?
There is a rating criteria that folks respond to, but just practically speaking, from your own experience, money certainly does help that. So, I mean, what we'll do is, and that's why the leveraging components of the grant is so important now, is we really encourage them to do what you said. So once the grant, is starting to wane down, and even before that, what are your kind of long-range goals to sustain it? And so the leverage component is what some sites are doing. And all the sites are leveraging a significant amount of dollars. That said, our money obviously does go a long way to helping keep it sustainable.
What about an existing program or an existing grantee that you work with the program?
Madam Chair, yes, if I could weigh in on that, Jerry. I think there are so many trade-offs that have to be analyzed here. And I think on balance, the recommendation that the staff is providing to you today has to do with spreading the limited Prop 47 resources to more cities and counties across the state. While of course the preference is for the highest quality programs and projects and innovative projects to be funded. As Ricardo noted, we had 58 applications in the first round of funding. $103 million was available, around $250 million was asked for. And the impacts of Prop 47, clearly, we're all aware, affect every city and county across the state, and we were only able to get 23 programs started. So while indeed there could be an existing lead public agency that has a new and different, there should be attention paid to issues of double dipping as well. On balance, we felt like there's so much unmet need in cities and counties across the state that haven't yet received any Prop 47 grant funding, that again, we would take 2 years of funding, a smaller, total amount. And while we still have, I think what's generally viewed to be a very meaningful RFP, the requirements that are all in there have yielded good projects so far. And so this proposal for cohort number 2 allows us to get funding out into the field when it becomes available next year, and we'll spread the resources around. That's true. So Erin is also reminding me, we have the great report from Sandag about the information that they're collecting here in San Diego, but we don't yet have information from the first set of 23 programs about what really is working well. So that would better inform cohort number 3 in the timelines.
I agree. I think it's important to spread it out. It's a big state with a lot of different jurisdictions, cities, counties, and so on. I think it's important to expand and fund more programs around the state.
It really didn't answer my question of what if one of the current grantees has a different program, let's say versus the city of Los Angeles. Certainly 8 different programs that we do a great job with this Prop 47 funding and the population that would benefit from it. So could you narrow the scope and say, you know, if you're an existing grantee, but your submittal is not for the same program that you previously submitted for, I guess that's part of my concern, is essentially frozen them out, and certainly I think everybody would agree that the need across the state, large county or small county, is certainly there. And by excluding the only new, you know, some of the larger jurisdictions that got 1 or 2 programs aren't able to go and submit for a new or a different program is probably the better way to put it, than what they're currently operating.
Well, the likelihood of, let's say, a jurisdiction as large as LA, I mean, they can come up with a number of other applicants that could move forward on this without being the exact grantee. Not to say that there couldn't be components of it that included similar functions that they may already have in an existing grant. So I don't foresee, I think that's a bigger problem in a smaller jurisdiction, where you may only have one able grantee. But in a place like LA, they can.
So they just don't call themselves the AHP.
That's right. There could be a different lead public agency. City of Los Angeles, of course, you know, does have a grant, and so they wouldn't be able to be a lead public agency again. But some other public agencies serving in Los Angeles, I would anticipate will apply. And just as we have this year, there are a total of 5 of the 23 grants are going to cities or the county of LA, or in one case, the police department in Pasadena, right? So I would anticipate that the people of Los Angeles County will continue to get services if there's a successful lead public agency that applies.
And so what we often see, and I'll state the obvious for the record, is larger jurisdictions will have a much easier way of having a grantee come forward and apply, and maybe more funds go to a particular jurisdiction. Small jurisdictions, you know, really are often harmed in some ways by doing this, because they may only have one able grantee in the jurisdiction. I think we had all of these discussions, and I certainly respect what you're saying, but we continue to weigh in that we think that we should disperse the funds at least in round 2 further, and then round 3 then frees everybody up for another run at the money. I can tell you're not satisfied, but do you have something else?
No, I think I see where this is headed.
It's a good discussion. Good discussion. Anything else? Anything from anybody in the public? Any cards filled out on the item?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have 3 speakers. Dominique Nong from the Children's Defense Fund. Y'all can just come up and take turn speaking. Brian Goldstein from the Center on Juvenile Criminal Justice, and Sylvia Castillo from Women Organizing Reentry Committee.
As we generally do, the time limit is 2 minutes on this. How are you, Dominique?
I'm doing well, thank you. Good morning. I'm standing here to address the issue of the proposed Prop 47 RFP development process for cohort 2. I'm requesting that this board approve the proposed RFP development process with one change, and that change is to include the Prop 47 Executive Steering Committee in the process, specifically by having the ESC review and approve of the RFP changes made by staff, including the staff's decisions regarding public comments submitted, before it's submitted to the board for approval. The Prop 47 RFP that will be adjusted for cohort 2 was created after much discussion, time, and effort by the ESC, as earlier noted by both Ricardo Goodrich and Chair Penner, and which sought consideration, including the development of guiding principles, were incorporated throughout the entire RFP, including in seemingly technical aspects of the RFP. Therefore, I think it's important that the ESC is able to review and approve of any alterations to the RFP to ensure that any changes remain in line with or promote their original intentions. Therefore, again, I ask that this board approve the development process, but have it be adjusted to incorporate the executive steering committee in the process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Brian Goldstein with the Center on Juvenile and Criminal Justice. Prop 47 implementation by the Board of State Community Corrections was a key success for the agency. It was built from thoughtful leadership and an inclusive stakeholder process. Now, the Executive Steering Committee was instrumental in the agency's success. The Executive Steering Committee was representative of communities most impacted by our justice system. The Executive Steering Committee's delegated responsibility, the process by which the agency uses Executive Steering Committees, is essential, given the wide charge that this board has. So we're concerned that the BSCC is seemingly sidestepping the Executive Steering Committee process in favor of one led by staff. It would seem that staff are already making substantial changes to the RFP, while at the same time saying that they do not have enough information and data to make those changes. So we would ask that the BSCC reconvene the Prop 47 Executive Steering Committee to review public comment and feedback. This board is very busy. There are many new members who have joined the board since Prop 47 was passed, and we think reconvening the Executive Steering Committee to update the RFP is necessary for the development of the RFP and to ensure the continued success of Prop 47. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Ms. Castillo decided she wants to speak at the end during the public comment period. So that's all we have.
Now I turn back to the board. Any comments, suggestions, reactions?
What would be the downside to engaging some or all of the original BSC and just reviewing the final RFP? And how much would it slow down the process? And what are the downsides?
I think the operating phrase there is some or all. Some may be possible, I don't know about all. I think the changes which are very technical in nature, we thought could be made by staff. You know, as you go through this process, you know things that are relatively inconsequential, that just have to have some cleanup, much like we do with legislation and trailer bills. And so we thought that it would behoove us just to make those technical changes.
In terms of like the issue that Mr. Powers is bringing up, is that a technical change or is that more than a technical change?
It's certainly more than a technical change.
Madam Chair, so in response to both of the questions, I think we can try to figure out a way to incorporate input from the Executive Steering Committee. Understanding the questions and suggestions that have been raised today, the intention was to make very few substantive changes to the RFP, to basically continue to use that excellent work product that your Executive Steering Committee came up with. And I'm hearing the request today, well, just let them look at the proposed revisions and make sure that they agree. I see the merit of doing that. I would want to raise a couple of concerns, one being conflict issues, Scott. So if you, for example, wanted to be able to participate, maybe you would just say, well, I'm not going to do that review piece. The issue on our recommendation as staff, I think we felt was an appropriate idea to bring to the board in terms of the timing of this new cohort, at 2 years of savings rather than 3, and only allowing new lead public agencies. Those were issues we thought were properly before the board, but the Executive Steering Committee, if this board wants us to build in an ESC review component, we can do that. We can absolutely do that. We have to, work out how, but they would see, okay, here's the RFP, and round 2 includes some important changes, including round 1, successful applicants don't get to apply, things like that.
But as you noted, as I noted, it probably be unlikely it would be replicated because there will be members that will step away from the process if they want to engage and apply themselves in cohort 2. Your reference to the ESC, I don't foresee an instance where we bring on new members of an ESC. So if we were to comport with the request I hear people making, it would be for very substantive issues and a group made up of what group was left of the executive steering committee, not bringing in new members.
That sounds right.
And informing those committee members if they're interested in their agency applying, then they would want to step
It seems like it would be a one-day.
Oh, I agree, Scott. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
so
Right.
we'll just go down the process.
It's even that substantive, because we don't finalize it.
Yes.
Right.
Aaron's mentioning we would want to be sure that we are following the statutory requirements in AB 1056, but if we use the prior roster of ESC committee members, I anticipate that would work out. Right?
I think it would, and again, we know for sure we have several members of that ESC who were very concerned in terms of the round one funding about being able to apply for round two funding. So once we effectively lose those members, I think we would be statutorily obligated to fill those slots if we were to convene a Prop 47 executive steering committee.
But it may not come to that, because we may not have substantive issues that would take us to the need to reconvene an executive steering committee, understanding it's the desire of the board, if those issues come forward, that we consider bringing the body back together. But I think it's going to be difficult for the reasons you suggest. One is that there are statutorial members to this executive steering committees that may not want to come back in because they want to apply, and B, just simply unavailability of people. It was quite a heavy lift.
And I would sort of mention the things that we sort of talked about in terms of what we consider the substantive change versus a technical change. And at least I know we've had staff discussions about what would be substantive change, and what we would envision, at least for now, is the pots of money would remain the same. The pass-through requirements for CBO participation would remain the same. Really, what we're looking at, the scoring criteria would effectively remain the same. And what we would be looking at really is changing the timelines in terms of how long the grant period should be. So those were really the changes that we were looking at.
We really been briefed on that now.
Yes.
So I don't know that there would be a need to reconvene based on the changes suggested that have come to the board.
And Madam Chair, reminding everyone, we would bring that revised RFP to this board for approval, which is a process in which we have further public comment. I think we're hearing very clearly that it's important that the vision and the structure that the first ESC built into that RFP should be changed as little as possible, basically. So I think we can certainly do that. And that's already part of what this agenda item was constructed to do, to bring that RFP back to you.
And I'm looking at the list, over 11 of the folks on the list are either government agencies who wouldn't have a conflict or people that don't work in the space and wouldn't have conflict. So I mean, if it ever had to come back, I think we have at least 12 of the 18 that would be able to participate.
It's really the statute, the ones that are prescribed in 1056 that create the problem for us. You know, we're directed by the legislation. And I can't recall exactly who they were, but they could be the ones that could be problematic if we reconvene, if they wanted to apply.
What if they reconvene the exact same group and they're absent and you have a quorum?
I think we have a question as to whether or not that's actually not what we said.
We had days where we had a quorum and 3 or 4 people were missing, and it was the Prop 47 executive steering committee.
C2.
The housing expert and a CBO.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think
Yeah, I can read it in brief. So it's on page 5 if you're looking through C2. Form an executive steering committee that includes but is not limited to a balanced and diverse membership from relevant state and local government entities, community-based treatment and service providers, and the formerly incarcerated community. The committee shall have expertise in homelessness and housing, behavioral health and substance abuse treatment, and effective rehabilitative treatment for adults and juveniles. And then it goes on to talk about the types of principles that they should incorporate.
So I guess in my estimation, Scott, if we're missing one of those prescriptive members, we're not in compliance with 1056 as we move forward.
I would then not reconvene if you believe. I would not reconvene if you believe you have to fill new slots.
Question, if you're discussing pushing this back to the ESC for technical changes, why couldn't you push it back if you're making substantive changes such as limiting the and the other half of the question would be, are the current applicants aware that they're going to be excluded? I'm assuming if we vote on this today that we're also voting on the exclusion of existing applicants, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Have we had any feedback from individuals on that?
We haven't convened the executive steering committee.
No, I guess what I mean is based on the posting of the agenda, since it was posted with this recommendation, has there been any feedback?
No, the intent was to have the conversation with the board first.
And Ricardo has had some informal conversations as he's visiting grantees, and how would you characterize that response?
Informally, I think the current grantees understand, and so again, it goes back to that visual chart that shows when cohort 1 would end, and then potentially for cohort 3, if there being potential of some lag. Under that, they understood that, okay, yeah, other folks would get a chance to apply, and they understood that the changes would, again, as we said, would be technical in nature. They haven't had the benefit of seeing them, obviously, because we represent them today. We haven't fleshed them all out yet. But just based on those kind of minor conversations, no one's raised any flags or concerns as of yet.
This is part of my concern, is that this is really the first time we aired this, and we're going to make a vote as BSCC to exclude the existing grantees. They are or may not be aware of this, had an opportunity to formally weigh in. I'm really surprised that the existing grantees are okay with that. That we haven't at least heard some concerns about not being able to apply for cohort 2, especially if it's going to be $75 million or whatever. Which makes me question whether that's really been vetted out there. And do we vote on that today, or is that something we send back if you're going to use this ESC? It sounds like there's some doubt whether that's even possible. For technical, why wouldn't you also use it for any substantive changes as well, so they could weigh in on it?
I do think the current grantees are aware that with this 12-month extension, they'll have more time to continue working on the grants that they already have. And then they would, in the program we're trying to plan, they would then be able to apply again in cohort 3 without any lapse or very little lapse in time. So I think that's been
a vote for cohort today, for cohort 3, that the existing grantees will be allowed to do that. Is there a guarantee for that? Or what's to prevent this board from a year from now deciding in cohort 3 that only new applicants will be allowed to apply?
We specify that in the recommendation. That's absolutely the sense of the staff's recommendation, is that they would be able to. We can certainly,
today, but
yeah, sure, but that's, you could absolutely take that action to say, to direct that cohort 1 recipients would be eligible to apply in cohort 3.
And cohort 2 won't be.
Yeah.
My comment was, could we add that if the board wanted to?
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Powers followed up with, what about cohort 2?
Oh, yeah.
Applying for cohort 3, and that has not been decided. Same principle.
In an effort to actually let people finish up work with a very small lapse time, in its efficiencies in my mind, the prohibition of them being able not to be able to apply every time but every other time is kind of how I saw this rolling out. And some of that are just simply efficiencies. you're not done with one grant before, the other grant's ready, and, we didn't see that rolling those right back to the same grantees was, a good way to do it. But part of your other suggestion, and, you know, you don't characterize it exactly like that, is that you think that we should have, before the board votes on this, have a period of public comment on these recommendations. And I would say that the agenda has been out, for its 10-day statutory time period, and we have heard nothing. And I think, from that, I construe that, people are not, having a great deal of, heartburn over, not being able to plan round two, because they're just getting round one up and running.
Well, and if the discussion's been had to alleviate the heartburn, that cohort 3 will be available to them, I think we need to incorporate that into some sort of understanding, formal understanding going forward, so that when this board completely changes in 18 months and we're having this discussion and half of us aren't even here anymore, that there's some sort of memorial to this discussion that says,
I agree.
Yeah, I think that's
I think that's only fair.
Is it as simple as saying every other round?
I think, Erin is pointing out that this is, so because we need to be very mindful of Bagley King requirements, we would want to, staff would want to bring back an action item to you. We can do it as soon as November. That would be absolutely easy to do. I guess for purposes of today, the idea would be to release for public comment in some period of time, whatever amount of time that work is involved in getting it ready for release. We would want to put a whole lot of information out to the field. You know, please take a look at the suggested round 2 RFP. And in any case, if this board is interested in taking action on some clear rules in terms of when grantees can apply for funding and when they're not permitted to, we can bring that back to the board. Since it's not agendized today, we can't take that action.
Well, I think I grasped the first part of what you said. The second part eludes me. So I'm sorry, the first part eludes me. Do you not want to take a vote on this today and put it out for public comment? Is that the suggestion?
We do want you to take a vote so that we can start the getting public comment process. And then we will come back to you with these further fine-tuning changes in terms of cohorts at the November meeting. Does that work?
Well, hasn't the board taken action? If we vote on it today, we've taken an action. And you want to then put our action out for public comment to bring back to the board in case you want to change the action we took today?
I think that to clarify, the vote today would be to, as Ricardo set forth, was that we would post the cohort 2 proposed RFP and receive comment for, I believe we have for 30 days, as part of the board report, and bring whatever comments there might be back to the board for November discussion. There's a separate issue of, are we going to formally adopt this every other grant cycle eligibility? Because the way we've agendized this item, which is specifically for the grant period 2019 to 2021, that's not cohort 3. We haven't agendized cohort 3. So if we want to put a rule in place for cohort 3 in terms of eligibility, we would have to agendize that at the next board meeting as well, specific to cohort 3. It would be my recommendation in terms of making sure that that was properly noticed for people to comment on in terms of the eligibility requirement beyond cohort 2. Cohort 2 is before the board at this point.
Can I make a recommendation?
Does that sound, go ahead.
It just kind of strikes me that we don't want to piecemeal the issue about who gets funding in which cohort and stuff. And it might make more sense to modify this existing recommendation, pull out the new exclusion criteria for new grantees or existing grantees, and agendize that for November, because I don't think that will delay the RFP part of it, and then have staff come back with a recommendation as to how the funding eligibility works. If it's every other cycle or as determined or just specific to cohort 2 and 3, so to not obligate funding that we don't know when it's going to get released going forward. I think there's a lot of questions about when and how and who. In fact, not just cohort 2, but cohort 3, and going forward, who's going to be eligible.
I agree with Mr. Powers, and, but I also feel like there may be other issues, not just the issue that you bring up. So I think what you suggested in terms of releasing the RFP, getting public comment, and coming back in November to make these decisions seems smartest to me.
I have a question. So I see this just my first time at the table, hearing this great discussion and Mr. Powers' input about excluding existing grantees and also understanding that the whole, I believe the purpose was to expand it and to allow others, say like the small counties that may have an idea and want to participate forward too. If we're going to be convening a scoring committee, is it even possible to consider existing grantees as a part of the scoring, not excluding them, but adding them into the discussion as a score if they want to participate in cohort 2? Is that even possible? So you don't exclude them, but you factor in that they already have a current grantee and they want to either expand and put in for a new program, and they compete with the other new grantees.
If I'm understanding the question, it will allow for round 1 people to be eligible, but maybe weight their their score based on whether or not they receive first round funding. That to me again would be a pretty substantial.
That's a substantial change
That would
to
be-
the RFP.
or-
This money's in pots, right? Small, medium, and large.
Just scope,
Just
two,
scope.
two pots.
Okay.
Large scope projects up to 6 million, small scope
So-
projects up to 1 million, and anybody can apply for anything.
So not based on county size.
Correct,
No.
correct.
Except for LA County can apply as an agency for up to 20 million. So 1/6 and only LA County got the 20 million.
In round 1.
And LA County would be ineligible as the county body to apply in round 2, at least as proposed.
Today.
That recommendation for the board.
You're set aside, I assume there isn't a set aside cohort 2 for LA County.
There would not be a set aside of LA County.
For the county, but any public agency in LA could apply for up to 6.
And I'd like to make a motion to table this, release the RFP, get public comment, and then be able to make revisions at our next meeting.
So
If
recommendation, I'm sorry.
Does that preclude us, essentially, we have to do, you want to do something sooner, so we can get the RFP, let that out there, is that accurate? And if we don't do something today, no action can be taken until November, is that accurate?
I think we have enough lead time, Sheriff. I don't think that time is a huge factor here. We wanted to just initiate a process in anticipation of cohort number 2. September, November, not a huge deal.
So let me restate. I think, Board Member Doug, if you are suggesting that we only move forward on item number 1, recommendation number 1, that the allocation of funding for the next RFP and the eligible applicants be tabled. And would you entertain approving number 3, which is approve the use of a scoring committee for the sole purposes of scoring proposals? So we can move forward on item 1 and item 3 and table item 2.
I guess question, with number 1, we release the R47 RFP for public comment. Once we get that public comment back in November, we can discuss that public comment, we can further discuss more research we've done into, Director Powers' issue, and other issues, and then make changes to that if necessary, correct?
Well, on item one, that's correct, but if we have to have some way to put, if you want to have public comment on, future funding and who's eligible, somewhere in this interim, we have to have an opportunity to get feedback on that. Is that what the board is suggesting, or what you're suggesting?
Well, yeah, I guess what I would say is pushing I have no problem with establishing a scoring committee. Pushing a draft RFP with technical changes that you discussed makes sense to me. And then the rest of it, or the areas that we've been kind of chewing on and struggling with, come back in November and make a final decision on that.
But that's applicant eligibility, right?
Yes.
And a roadmap for funding down the road, because your suggestion that we'll all be gone in 18 months is accurate. No.
I won't be gone in 18 months.
You'll be what? I believe that.
I'm up in the air.
You are holding out.
I have faith in you.
Okay, so, how do you propose, just technically speaking, if we, item 2, we put that out to the public also for comment on who should be eligible, and then come back to the board with a recommendation after public comment?
I think we should identify let people weigh in as part of the review of the RFP on whether or not we think existing applicants funding should be eligible for grants.
Okay, so do we have a suggestion motion that we approve items 1 and 3 and put item 2 out for public comment?
Seek input on something like that.
Right.
The allocation of future funding and applicant eligibility. So that would be a seek input on, Jerry. Okay.
And come back with a recommendation on future funding. Okay. So looking. Well, we have a partial motion. Would you entertain, in addition to your motion, basically approving item 1 and 3? And putting item 2 out for public comment and coming back with applicant eligibility recommendations to the board at the next meeting?
So by doing that, what would be locked in today that couldn't be changed in November?
The release of the initial Prop 47 RFP with technical amendments.
I'm fine with technical amendments.
And the grant cycle for public comment. We're doing that. That's item 1. The other thing that would be locked in is the use of the scoring committee for the sole purpose of scoring the proposals that you agreed to.
I'm fine with that as well. The only question I have is how we define technical amendments. Is the scoring matrix a technical amendment?
That would be substantive.
That's substantive.
Okay, approved.
And don't approve yet, hang on. So then I would also like you to add to your recommendation, if at all agreeable to you, is to put item number 2 out into the field for public comment and bring recommendations back to the board on item number 2 at the next meeting.
I love public comments.
So do we have a
Speaking of
motion?
public comments,
Motion by Mr. Budnick, second by Mr. Powers. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Good discussion. You know, easy discussions aren't as meaningful. Good discussions pack some fun. On to item E, juvenile title 15 and 24 regulation revisions. final approval and permission to submit to the Office of Administrative Law. We're going to take a quick break. The chair has lost the board.
Yeah, okay. I will.
Thank you. executive director, usually. Ricardo, you look like you're leaving.
Oh, my goodness. Bye, Ricardo, thanks.
Let's see how we're doing. Secretary of BSG would, not say that, the chair is. Okay. And back on item E, and just let the record reflect, there was an unsupervised break started by Sheriff Moore. It was a revolt, everybody will.
And Madam Chair, if I may jump in, David Steinhardt, again, our board member who co-chaired this committee, is under the weather today. He again apologizes for not being here. If I could just jump in, Allison, and ask her panel to read his comment first.
I actually thought his comments were better suited after.
Oh,
Wouldn't this be when a board member would make a comment? I'll read it now if you like, but
I just wanted to remind myself more than anything.
I think you were reminding me that was very kind of you. I'm happy to read it. Although I'm making comments on something that we haven't learned about yet, and for new board members, that's a bit
Let's
backwards.
hold off then.
Thank you.
Just wanted to make David's presence noted in the room.
Okay. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and board members. My name is Allison Ganter. I'm the Deputy Director for the Facility Standards and Operations Division. And I'm here to present you with the final revisions to the Juvenile Title 15 minimum standards that pertain to facility operations. The minimum standards for design and construction, Title 24, will proceed through a separate Building Standards Commission process, and we'll keep you posted on that process as they proceed. I'd also like to ask for your approval to submit the final rulemaking materials to the Office of Administrative Law. And this is the final step for us in the rulemaking process. Upon your approval, we will submit the final rulemaking package to the Office of Administrative Law, and we're anticipating an effective date of January 1st, 2019 for these regulations. So what you have before you in attachment 1 are the final proposed revisions to the Juvenile Title 15 minimum standards. And attachment 2 is a document called the Final Statement of Reasons, which contains the comments received during the 45-day public comment period and BSCC staff response to those comments. And I'd like to again thank both Ms. Brown and Mr. Steinhardt for their leadership in this process, and also to acknowledge and thank Mr. Varela for his participation as an executive steering committee member. And many of you will remember the details from past meetings. And for the benefit of our newer members, I'd like to briefly review the actions that led up to this presentation. The BSCC began this process back in November 2016 when the board appointed board members Michelle Brown and David Steinhardt as co-chairs to the Juvenile Regulation Revision Executive Steering Committee. Between then, November 2016 and November 2017, BSCC staff convened 3 executive steering committee meetings, 8 subject matter work group meetings, and fielded countless public comments related to these regulations. In February of this year, the board approved the final revisions and asked staff to begin the OAL public comment period. The public comment period was held from April 6th to May 21st of this year, and staff conducted 2 public hearings. Comments focused mainly on chemical spray, restraints, and staffing ratios. Staff responded to all of those comments in the final statement of reasons, and no regulations were modified as a result of those public comments. The board is looking at the same revisions presented back in February. As a reminder, some of the notable revisions include including trauma-informed care from addition of definitions to requirements for trauma-informed care in many aspects of facility operations, assessments for risk of sexual abuse, strengthening of requirements for use of force, including training and reporting requirements, and ensuring that chemical agents are used only after attempts at de-escalation have failed, ensuring transition and aftercare plans for medication management and connection to community programs and supports, aligning standards for room confinement to recent statutory changes, and also ensuring that youth may have their own underwear throughout their stay in the facility. And this has been the most comprehensive revision of juvenile regulations since the Board of Corrections, our predecessor agency, absorbed responsibility for local juvenile detention facilities in the mid-90s. These revisions reflect the many positive trends that we see in juvenile justice reform and are reflective of the input of community members, subject matter experts, and stakeholders. Again, before closing my discussion, I'd like to again thank Ms. Brown and Mr. Steinhardt, the Executive Steering Committee, the work groups, and the public, and also the Facility Standards and Operations team, especially Ginger Wolf, who keeps this process alive and afloat. It took a lot of work to get this done, and it was a wonderful team that got it done. I'm happy to take any questions.
And now I will insert Mr. Steinhardt's remarks. I think this is heartfelt from him, because he's not feeling well and could not make it today. He asked me to read this. As you know, I co-chair the Juvenile Facility Standards Revision Executive Steering Committee along with probation chief and departing board member Michelle Brown. This was a long and complex process that involved 80 members of subject matter working groups, our 12-member steering committee, and the BSCC staff providing hundreds of hours of staff support. The outcome before you today is a vastly improved set of juvenile facility standards, modernized in key areas including programming, education, health, and mental health, nutrition and conditions of confinement, among others. Also, the new set of standards is more sensitive and responsive to the special needs of populations, including the LGBTQ and undocumented youth and youth with mental health issues. Our work was supplemented by very high and helpful levels of public comment from advocates, youth, and experts in many fields, including hundreds of pages of written and spoken testimony. I fully support the revised standards as now presented to you for approval. I also want to express and thank all who participated in this effort, including members of the Executive Steering Committee, the working groups, and with a special nod to Allison Ganter and the BSCC staff who worked tirelessly on this revision. Allison, very nice work. It's a huge lift. Even though some say these revisions are simple, this is a great painstaking effort, and we appreciate all of your work. Any other members of the board have a comment?
Just a quick comment. As a person who sat on the BSC in probation world, chiefs often talk about the need for our juvenile detention centers to evolve based on the population that we currently have. I think this process, the inclusion of a lot of our public comments, is an example of that evolution that needs to happen. I think we get a lot of great stuff to include into our regs. And I thought it was great. It was a heavy lift, and I do want to echo Chair's comments regarding the BSCC staff. I know how much time it is for them, so thank you.
Anyone from the public wish to comment? Seeing none, back to the board, looking for a motion to adopt recommendations 1 and 2.
I'll make a motion.
Motion second? Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you, Allison.
Thank you.
On to item F.
All right. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and board members. My name is John Prince, the Deputy Director of the County Facilities Construction Division. Agenda item F requests that the board approve Madera County's request for scope change for the Senate Bill 1022 project. As background, Madera County was not one of the counties that received the initial awards back in 2012 when in 2013 they were initially granted. They received a partial conditional award in 2016 and then were made whole in 2017. With that in mind, there was obviously quite a few things that have changed in the state. The county decided to do a needs assessment based on that and came up with some scope change requests, which you can see as attachments to item F. The major items here is that the initial scope was to create a 144 bed, new 144 bed facility on top of their existing facility and renovate pieces of their current facility as well. This new change, instead of adding 144 beds, will add 20 special use beds and include additional programming and medical and mental health space and classroom space that was not originally requested in the proposal. With that, the staff recommends that the board approve the Madera County SB 1022 project scope change as submitted.
Any comments, questions from the board? I see public comment coming forward. Did you fill out a comment card with this?
Absolutely.
Oh, there you go.
Absolutely.
We're gonna allow you to speak.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Mike Gonzalez, Assistant Director of Madera County Department of Corrections. Pleasure to be here. I just wanted to make a comment. It's great to see that this board still has the passion that it does to discuss items that are put before it. As being a part of the BSC myself at one time, for the passion that it takes, it's refreshing to see that how seriously we do take this. I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you.
I'd like to present a statement that was prepared by the Board of Supervisors of Madera County. And it starts off as, Dear BSS board members, on behalf of Madera County Board of Supervisors, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to request a change in scope for our SB 1022 proposal. Since our original proposal in 2013, the county jail has undergone a number of changes that necessitate a revised project scope. These changes can be attributed to new legislation such as Prop 47 and 57, as well as the county not experiencing the growth that we have initially anticipated. The change in scope presented today reflects our needs of today and current construction market conditions as well. Our updated needs assessment revealed a need for special use beds, program space, supportive spaces, and expanded infrastructure. The special use bed will grant us the flexibility to house inmates with various mental health needs. Yet the added program space will help us to further our goal and reduce recidivism. The new scope conforms well to the intent of SB 1022. It is supported by our board as well as the Community Corrections Partnership. In fact, the partnership demonstrated its support by committing to provide the county's 5% matching fund for the grant in its entirety. It is our hope that you approve our change in scope request. Respectfully, Tom Wheeler, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Any other public comments? Back to the board. Looking for a motion in a second.
I'll make a motion. That's the recommendation.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you.
Madam Chair, before we go into the closed session, we do, our agenda shows the final public comment after that. Could we do public comments now?
Yeah, that's what I was intending to do.
Thank you.
So we are now at final public comment. I would advise the board when we leave, when public comment is over, we do have a closed session. Keep it brief. But before that, is there any final public comment that anyone wishes to make? We have one?
Yeah, you do have one. Sylvia Castillo.
Good afternoon, and thank you. I am here representing women organizing re-entering communities of color for Prop 47. I serve as a consultant supporting a statewide collaborative led by Time for Change Foundation, Kim Carter, A New Way of Life, Susan Burton, and Justice Now, Amanda McKnight. The imperative is to ensure that Prop 47 resources are equitably invested in pathways to employment and economic well-being for reentry women of color, especially African American and Latino women who are disproportionately impacted by the criminal justice system. And the reason I'm here today is that one, we really do love the work of the board, and particularly invested in that many of these organizations conducted civic engagement in order to make sure Prop 47 passed. And now we're at a stage where we're actually not only tracking how women of color are connecting up with this opportunity or the second chance, but we're also concerned about the eligibility of the women of color who are currently in prison, coming out of prison, and having access to reclassification as well as support services. So we've been monitoring this from our own vantage point as 3 different community nonprofits that work with women of color. We are not, my organizations do not receive Prop 47 grants, however, they're continuing to do that kind of support. We are here to ask if we could receive, or we could actually partner with your staff. We're trying to get our arms around some fundamental data as we are looking at who is actually connecting up. How are they connecting up? Where are women in this? Where are women of color in terms of being able to go through reclassification and be able to access support? And we understand that the evaluation is in process, but we also know there's a great opportunity in this flow for us to have a snapshot that might be able to inform the program and funding going forward. Our particular interest is the organizations I just mentioned have expertise of lived experience, as well as expertise as being organizations that are gender responsive and have had successful strategies in making sure that women who have complex and unique needs actually are teed up and ready and walked over, as somebody described, from one entity, whether it's this city attorney or straight out of prison, to a nonprofit, to make sure those connections happen. And at the end of the day, that Prop 47's intent would have had the important impact that it needs to have on communities of color. So today I'm here to ask your support to see if perhaps staff could assist us in being able to access some of that data that gives a statewide picture of what is happening specifically by gender and ethnicity, since we seem to be off on many forks of the road with various levels of agency, and that it doesn't seem to be a clear path. And we're concerned that the voices that we represent will be legitimized. As we all know, data is very critical to making a case. So that's why I'm here today, and I really do appreciate you allowing us to come forward and to actually ask if we can partner with. And once we do have that snapshot, we'd love to come back and share with you what we believe are the successes of Prop 47 implementation, but as well as areas where it could be improved as we're going forward in the next rounds of funding.
Thank you. I regrettably don't think we have that data. Frankly, we collect a lot of pockets of data that are actually accessible on our website, and I know the secretary has better data capabilities than we do, probably on their website.
We can connect on CDC.
Excellent. I want to share, Mr. Diaz, that our organization just recently gave testimony to Congresswoman Karen Bass, who's currently looking at justice reform and gender responsive justice reform at the federal level, and she did direct us to you. So I'm looking forward to following that up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment? So with that, I would invite everybody but board members to leave the room. I'm going to ask you to close microphones, cameras, computers, and
But also don't go too far. We will have to leave the 30 minutes.
to adjourn. Yeah, look at, thank you all. Unless there's any other business board members would like, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Thank you, new members.
Great meeting.